Welcome back, comrades, and thank you all for your vigorous participation over the last 2 days. The healthy and spirited discussion we've had in each session fills me with a sense of optimism that I have sorely and severely missed, especially amidst the chaos and turbulence of a world that is heating up both figuratively and literally. We've seen wealth inequality skyrocket, the first probing tentacles of a revitalized global fascism slither out from the shadows, a ramping up of inter-imperialist rivalries, and an increasingly dire environmental future. Yet, at the same time, these developments have not gone unseen or unanswered. Scattered as it may seem, resistance has emerged and anger is rising. What we need to do, or what needs to be done, what is to be done, is to harness it. And over the course of this conference, we've heard from our comrades who have both the knowledge and experience to speak with clear-eyed analysis on the material conditions that we as the left face. To wrap up this conference with this closing session, I'll be going over 6 main points. Number 1, total participation info. We had about 270 or so people register for this conference and about 100 participants per panel. Every panel also had a shifting group of participants, which means that some people were coming in while others were leaving, very fluid dynamic, which tells me that there was a great deal of interest from all corners throughout the conference. And even as participant numbers did dip a little bit on the second day, I say it's still very impressive that so many people stayed on for so long through a series of very heady discussions and debate. Number 2, I'm going to go into a summary of the main points of unification from each panel. On the panel on Ukraine and Palestine, we said, we as revolutionary socialists must avoid the twin terrors of supporting the West's imperialism, exploiting the war in Ukraine for its own ends, the very same imperialism that supports the destruction of Palestine by the occupying forces of Israel, as well as the imperialist logic of campism that says Russia is doing nothing wrong. The enemy of my enemy is not our friend, and only through the independent alliance between workers, be they from Ukraine, be they from Russia, be they from Palestine, can these horrors end just as they ended World War I. Workers of the world, unite. On the second panel, the dead end of reformism. The path to socialism has not and cannot follow the reformist road. The footsteps of reformism lead only to failure and co-optation as seen through the attempts at realignment by DSA founder Michael Harrington here in the US and earlier the SPD in Germany. We must instead focus on political organizing and agitation outside of the electoral sphere, growing mass organizations capable of channeling the power of the working class into mass movements independent of the extant liberal political parties. On abolition, as Uvalde has laid bare, the police under capitalism are incapable of doing the so-called good and protective activity they claim would outweigh the brutality they actually inflict. Yet, our resistance to that must cohere. The liberal politicians and NGOs, like the National BLM org, have fallen prey to the very same capture that has doomed so many previous efforts. And we must organize from the bottom up with clear demands that focus the energy that exists into a clear spearhead towards actual justice. Abolish the border and the capitalist police order. On building a revolutionary party, we said that to overthrow capitalism, we will need a mass organization with a coherent set of socialist demands, and the creation of such is a prime directive if we wish to achieve victory. But we must act together rather than as a scattered milieu. Let us learn from the failures of the International Socialist Organization, which was top-heavy, bureaucratic, and coercive. Let us win over our comrades through debate and argument, recruit through active intervention, and develop a cadre that can take the fight to all of our streets. On capitalism in crisis, we said, the capitalist order is a colossal juggernaut rotting at the knees, with whispers of recession growing with each passing day and the steam of debt crisis whistling with ever higher pitch. We will likely see more revolts, more uprisings, more tensions tearing apart the status quo, and we need to organize in a manner conducive funneling this energy into full-on class warfare, avoiding the trap of liberal capture and limiting ourselves to frameworks of strict legality. Amazon workers have shown us the way in some aspects, less so in others. But what is important is to develop worker power on the shop floor where it is strongest and to maintain workers' independence. On uniting against the far right, fascism, even if it isn't an overt monster that has yet shown its horns so blatantly in the US, it has always lurked in the shadow of a cop's boot on Black and Indigenous POC's necks. The 8 overarching elements of fascism: nationalism, militarism, sexism, charismatic leaders, dual application of the law, racial capitalism, racial purity, ethnic cleansing, genocide, they're making gains again here, just as they did in Germany and Italy. But let's not forget, the Nazis took explicit inspiration from the United States, and that this history is not one of repetition but rhyme. Anti-fascism must take many strategies, but throughout all those strategies, it must always be unapologetic. On bodily autonomy, we said the culmination of a decades-long effort by the reactionary forces in the Republican Party has come to the fore, and the NGOs, think tanks, and nation at large seem to be simply waiting for the overturn of Roe v. Wade to happen. As an insidiously pro-capitalist project, the anti-choice movement has supporters in both parties. Look at how the Democrats only dangle abortion rights in front of the ballot box as some sort of carrot. Also, do not forget how this is intertwined with the liberation of LGBTQ people. Reproductive freedom and queerness are both seen as abhorrent deviations from the traditional reproductive labor imposed on birthing people. To guarantee reproductive freedom is to liberate bodily autonomy, and we need both because we can't have one without the other. And finally, on eco-socialism, we said that we stand on the precipice of ecological catastrophe, pushed to the edge by resource extraction, by the capitalist productive forces that oppress us in the here and now. Capitalist solutions, or even such efforts as the Green New Deal, cannot save us. We simply cannot produce our way out. We can and must, however, draw lessons from the indigenous resistance that has always led the fight against extractivist forces. We can insist on the Red New Deal, and through it, demand a transition to renewable energy with a dignity we have long been denied. So that's the main summary of the points of unification throughout these panels. I'm going to go into the third major point, which is to make a call to join affiliate organizations, start your own groups, or join the RSOP. We want to have local meetings and actions happening across the country. If there's been a through line between every session we've held, it's the necessity of organizing. We are scattered, yes, but we are hungry. Hungry for change, hungry for more than the scraps that the ruling class sees fits to drop us. We are hungry for the flesh of the rich, and especially the bread they hoard from us. Bread that we make with our own sweat, blood, and tears. And for us to get it, we must work together. United we bargain, divided we beg. Number 4, we should also be holding monthly meetings around analysis and theory building, as well as collective action. Having a monthly check-in just to see what is happening in the world, what is going on in our own communities, how workers are fighting back, or how the exploitation is happening are going to be paramount to keeping a clear-eyed view of the reality of the times, of the reality of the material conditions that we face. And what else is more important than that to a leftist? Not a whole lot, I can tell you that much. So every month, we should be holding some meetings on this topic. Number 5, in addition to that, we should be sending out monthly newsletters so we can stay properly informed about the current events of the time. And in addition to that, we should be issuing common statements on current events because we need to be at the forefront of every fight. And we don't know when or where those fights are going to be coming from, but we do need to be prepared and we do need to be able to respond to them and intervene. We shall also be holding report backs on actions that are happening locally, that are happening nationally, or something that you might have a hand in that you would like to perhaps speak more about and how that relates to the working class at large. And of course, we need to be talking about the relevant news of our time and analysis articles. Even if we do send out a monthly newsletter, there's bound to be some things that happen in between that either might not get picked up or are important, but have a lot of moving parts that we need to be kept informed on very closely. And of course, we need to know how to approach those as socialists and as a broader leftist community by looking through the analysis and debating what the worldview is and how we as leftists and the working class at large relate. And number 6, we want to set up a post-conference meetup for those interested in forming or joining with others to organize locally. As I said, there's been a through line in this conference through every panel and discussion session we've held. It's the need to organize. Let's get together and let's make some good trouble, some actually good trouble. But before I go, I would like to give a special thanks to everyone, every organization that endorsed this conference. And I'm going to list them off in order. Full disclosure, I am a part of the first 2 of these. So I'm going to be kind of patting myself on the back a little bit here. So without further ado, special thanks to the RSOP, the RSN, Workers' Voice, Denver Communists, Seattle Revolutionary Socialists, Central Ohio Revolutionary Socialists, Cincinnati Socialists, and the Greensboro Revolutionary Socialists. Thank you so much.